Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second ever episode of the Professional People Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Diederich from TDA Insurance and Financial in Walled Lake, Michigan. And my guest today was Dana Hebreard, the Director of Career Services at Aquinas College. Dana and I had a great conversation about networking and how to surf the job market in these challenging times and in general. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for listening. Hi, everyone, and thanks for listening. I'm your host, Dan Diederich from the Professional People Podcast, and today I have with me Dana Hebreard from Aquinas College. Dana is the Director of Career Services at Aquinas. And Dana, how about you introduce yourself to everyone and tell us what your career path looked like and how you ended up being the Director of Career Services at AQ.
Sure, Dan, and thanks for having me today. It's really exciting to spend some time with you. Actually, I was a student. When I was a student in college, I really found my passion in student development. I was involved in several different organizations on campus. So I tried other industries. I was in broadcast journalism for a while. I did an internship with NBC. I also worked for a consulting company that did training and development packages, but I always came back to higher ed, completed my master's degree in college student affairs and leadership at Loyola University in Chicago. And actually, that's where I first heard about Grand Rapids and actually Aquinas College. One of my good friends had an Aunt Sharon that attended Aquinas and lived in Grand Rapids and loved it. And so when I saw back in the 90s, so I'm dating myself, the director of student activities position was available, I applied and got the position, and that's how I ended up in Grand Rapids. From there, I actually went to a couple other local institutions where I worked in career services and student activities and academic advising. I took some time and did my doctorate in educational leadership. But I always remembered Aquinas and how much I loved the institution. I had taught for the Career and Counseling Center the career development classes when I had been an employee of Aquinas. And so I had remembered the program. And when I saw the director of career services position open up a few years ago, I really just felt called to apply and was super excited to get the position. And I love my job. I love the Advantage Center and the people I work with. So I get to teach those career development courses again, specifically the one designed for upper class students. I also work with students and alumni on job search strategies and connect with employers to really just bring Aquinas College to the table and let people know that we're here and we have amazing students like yourself.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, I worked with Dana as a student at Aquinas, so I can back up that she's good at what she does, and she does a lot for the students and also the school. And just, Dana, could you go a little bit more in depth of exactly what the Advantage Center does for students? And I mean, I know I use it as such a good resource, and you guys do a lot of things, but some people out there might not know what exactly you guys do. So what does that really look like? You know, what's a day-to-day for you and your job look like as well?
Sure. Well, we're actually very unique. The Advantage Center combines all of those things, those experiential learning opportunities, such as career services or internships, student research, and study away under one roof. And that's not usually three things that kind of come together, but we have statistical evidence that indicates that students with those experiences, they land better post-college than other individuals who might not have participated in one of those areas because of the career-ready skills that are developed, such as critical thinking, cultural competency, which is huge these days, oral, written communication. So we all kind of work together, even though we might have different departments or different sort of day-to-day goals. We all work together and collaborate on a lot of shared activities and shared approaches. Hard to pin down a typical day. I was thinking about that. You know, a visit to the Advantage Center might look different depending on a student's goal for, you know, choosing career exploration. For example, a prospective or a first-year student might want to chat about choosing a major. selecting a career field, maybe how their study away or internship could fit into their 4-year plan. Upper class students might want to talk about budgeting, or salary negotiations, job search strategies, or how they can sort of break in to a field if maybe their major was a liberal arts, bend, and they want to break into something. How do you go about doing that? You and I know the benefits of a liberal arts degree, and kind of those experiences play into all different fields, but how do you communicate that? So we really talk to students about all those different topics and kind of make the connections between our Catholic Dominican heritage and those traits that I think employers really desire. So a little bit about the Advantage Center.
You got a lot going on in there, but
yeah.
all things pretty much to help students, be prepared for the next level and be prepared to find a job and things like that. And so I was wondering also, with everything going on right now with COVID-19 and everything, that obviously changes the landscape of how you guys are doing things. What kind of things are you doing differently to connect with the students and get those students connected with people who are hiring?
Yeah, well, it was a very quick turnaround, right? I mean, one day you're in the office and you're making precautions on, washing hands and ensuring cleanliness. And the next day you're having a stay-at-home directive. And we had to think pretty quickly and move the shift to remote learning and telecommuting. I think we were pretty well strategically positioned to do things and adapt quickly. We have a lot of tools that alumni such as yourself, who might not be in Grand Rapids, could already participate in. Handshake, which is our CRM, is accessible all over. We also have Pathway U, which is our online assessment on your gifts and what are your strengths and values and personality interests. Big Interview. We have a lot of those types of tools that are accessible and are available for alumni and students alike. And so it was really being able to communicate that to individuals and say, hey, we're still here. So the first immediate thing that we did was shift all of our one-on-one student appointments to virtual format, conducting over the phone or video technology like this. And that ensured that we could do everything, from mock interviews, resume critiques, or just sort of that career exploration, and make sure that students knew that we were there for them, even if they just wanted to chat. I've had a couple of individuals who just want to have 15-minute chats over, every week, just to make sure that they're kind of keeping on pace with things. We also talked a little bit about, well, how do we move our events that were supposed to be on campus and really cool and fun? How are we going to make those virtual? So reached out to some of our friends and other area institutions, and we put together a 3-part series. You might have heard about that. Coronavirus, Now What? So topics range from a conversation with all of the career directors on how to job search in uncertain times. Last week we did personal branding with another alum and the executive director of Hello West Michigan, Rachel Bartel-Gray. And then this Wednesday, we actually have our final one, which is putting your best face forward. So kind of how to do the virtual interview, because that's what companies, what institutions, what we're all using right now. So Bridget Avery is actually going to lead that one, and I think it will really be fun and entertaining, but also informative. So those series we've been conducting on Zoom on Wednesdays. They're open and accessible to all alumni and all students. We also tried to do a couple of other things. We've worked really hard. Internships, I mentioned Bridget, she's the internship director, and with the statewide lockdown that took place in March, many of those internships might have been halted, especially if they were with some small companies. So we had to be creative to help our students kind of complete their credits and the work that was required for the internship. So whether that meant coming up with different projects, like we have a digital badge project that is running now the 3rd straight year. We kind of integrated some of our students into that. Joe Fox, who is our career coach, and Bridget was able to kind of work with the Forest Hills Business Association, which a lot of their clients have been affected, or a lot of their members were affected by COVID-19. And so students are working with the members of the Forest Hills Business Association on digital badge project. One of our students, we did an independent study. Some larger companies continued with internships, and we've seen some really cool creative things with some companies. Spartan Nash is one of them. A lot of our accounting firms, they continue to retain students and internships, which is great, and transition them to remote employment. And then we really tried to kind of communicate or beef up our social media presence. So whether that's through LinkedIn or Facebook, or just sort of trying to figure out ways to reach out to individuals. Our latest thing that we're doing right now is and so if you have any seniors out there, you may get a phone call. Don't hang up, because we're a phone call outreach with our graduating seniors from the class of 2020. So some of our, the team is kind of breaking up and taking phone calls just to touch base, see how they're doing, say congratulations, and then ask them about their postgraduate plans and how we can help and fit in.
Yeah, that's super interesting. You guys are doing a ton of stuff to stay with the times and stay connected to students. That's awesome. Just some of the thoughts that popped in my head when you were going over that. Like, for those graduating seniors, it's got to be super challenging time for them, if in the cases where they may have had an internship lined up, or it's just super difficult to find one right now because a lot of places are putting a slowdown on their hiring. Are there any certain industries that you've seen that are still hiring and eager to hire people right now? Or just, what if you're a student right now, you just graduated and you're left in the dark, you don't know what you're thinking, what advice would you have for someone in that position right now?
Yeah, well, I'll answer your first question. Amy Marshall, who is an Aquinas alum, and you know her from the Alumni Association.
Yeah.
She's a managing partner of a company called Management Business Solutions, and Amy and I have been putting together a list of West Michigan, but then beyond, companies that are hiring and are hiring immediately. So everything from local companies such as Dorganics, which is a door-to-door organic food company that was founded in West Michigan, to Grand River Aztec Manufacturing, to Spartan Nash, to Hex Armor. I mean, there's a lot of companies that are still employing, that are still hiring and have immediate needs. And that's definitely something to kind of keep your eyes and ears open. During an economic slowdown, it's important to look at like what you can control, right? You can control your actions, how to improving your skills, maybe reaching out to your own network or growing your network. You can lay the groundwork so that when the crisis is over, you have opened some doors. It's not really much different than what I tell students in a quote unquote normal economy. I mean, get out there, work on your skills, communicate. Companies might not be hiring today that you wanted to work at, but they're trying to figure out what they are doing virtually, how they're moving forward. So if you continue to relationship build, if you continue to kind of get your ideas across, or your name out there, then you're going to be in better position once things open up and people start hiring again. It will happen, right? We're going to see the other side eventually. It's just, what do we do now to kind of keep ourselves I guess, in the forefront of individuals' minds? And I know it's super hard. There's some days that I don't want to do it either. Like, there's some days I just want to just read, or, but, especially when you see increased numbers of workers that might have been furloughed or laid off. And we've all been affected. I mean, even in my own household, we've all, I've even been affected by whether it's salary cuts or furlough or layoffs. There is going to be that's happening, and it's really stressful, and it should be acknowledged. But with that said, just keep kind of moving forward, kind of like what Walt Disney said, keep moving forward. So keep networking, keep applying, maybe change your approach a little bit to acknowledge that these are uncertain times. By that, I mean, when you're staying in touch, maybe you had a really promising interview and now the company has moved to remote work and you haven't heard from them for a little bit. Maybe send a quick email that's friendly and thoughtful and something that kind of says, hey, I'm looking forward to learning more when it makes sense for the organization. Like, I'd love to keep in touch. Connecting with people, think about, if I was the recruiter, what would I want to see? Well, I'd want to see a preview of what you could add to the team, so that when things open up, I'll be like, oh, that young man, he was really great. He was like really, kept communicating and talking with us. Think about what your ask is. One of my friends said once that when she is networking with somebody or someone reaches out to her and says, can you help me? And that doesn't tell her very much, because you're like, well, help me with what? What do you need help with? But she said, if you give me 4 things that you want me to know about yourself, and then one ask, that's going to be so much more powerful than if you just come in without a plan. Probably similar to how you approach business as well. You have to have a plan when you're talking to individuals. This right now also is a good time to gather intel, right? Set up Google alerts for companies or organizations you might want to work with. Is there investor information, articles that you could read, connecting on LinkedIn, building your LinkedIn profile. And I also think this is a good time to reflect. Job seekers often really kind of go, and then don't give themselves time to think, well, what are my skills? What are my superpowers? What are the things that I should be really highlighting? And so take this time to think about that as well. We're all getting really comfortable, whether we like it or not, with online communication. So keep networking. As Walt Disney said, I don't know if it's one of my favorite movies, Meet the Robinson, and at the end you see a quote from Disney, and part of that quote is keep moving forward. So whenever I'm feeling like I don't want to do it, I think of that quote and I think, okay, keep moving forward. So I tell people, don't think of the next job as sort of that perfect job. Consider it as sort of that bridge job. It may turn out to be more than you anticipate. It may just be that bridge job that gets you to that other side. Get comfortable with networking online. I think that's really important, whether it's joining professional organizations on LinkedIn or Facebook, or our alumni connections, making sure that you reach out to alumni and build those relationships. It's important to build those relationships before you need those relationships. So we could talk about that in a little bit, but I think networking isn't a transactional thing. It is deeper than that, and it should be more authentic than that. So, these are the times to build those sorts of authentic relationships. And you can, phone calls, Zoom meetings like this, stay in touch. I think that you may have I've heard from a number of seniors who said that I had a really promising lead with a company, and I thought there was going to be an offer and I haven't heard, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, have you contacted them? Have you reached out to them? And when you reach out, don't just say, so tell me a little bit, where are you with that job? Or don't say it like that. Say it more compassionately, into that person. And by that, I mean, you could say, hey, I know things are changing really quickly right now, and there's probably a lot of things on your plate. I'd love to keep in touch, and I look forward to learning more about the position and the opportunity that we discussed when it makes sense with your organization. I'll connect with you if it's okay in a couple of weeks, and just kind of keep in touch. And just sort of that approach is a lot more relational, and I'm sure HR directors would appreciate that. And just knowing, hey, I know that things are tough right now for you, but just let me know, that I'm here when things open up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just, we all get those LinkedIn messages when it's just someone trying to sell you something and you're immediately turned off. It's the same kind of way when you're going through the hiring process, I feel like.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I wanted to touch on is you were saying how it's more important than ever to be connecting virtually, whether it be social media or phone calls, emails, whatever it may be. What are some tips that you have for people, maybe who's a senior and doesn't have a job? What kind of content should they be posting to stick out to people trying to hire?
Yeah. So I have a student who is a senior graduating right now, and actually in my career development course for graduating seniors. And her name's Amy. And Amy and I were talking. She's a really gifted writer. And so I said, well, share your thoughts and your experiences about the situation, graduating in these really weird, uncertain times, reflecting on your journey. And she did. She wrote something and posted it on LinkedIn. Those are the kind of things that I always say, are super valuable. Things that are very, well-written, thoughtful. I mean, this was a really nice post. And she told me, she had an interview last week, and she said one of the recruiters told her that what the reasons that they were really interested in talking with her is because they read that. Because recruiters use LinkedIn, right? And they used all the social media we do. So they actually read that post that she had put out there, and they were impressed by it. And so that's the kind of things. I know we're not all writers, and we're not all going to be, feeling comfortable in that sort of platform. But it's important to get your LinkedIn profile updated, to get on that platform every day, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. And if you aren't comfortable, or don't feel like you are someone who can do that sort of writing, then think about other things that you can do. So, companies that you're interested in, or maybe people that you admire, you can follow them on LinkedIn, or, and then maybe post comments about, oh, that's a great post, or that's a great article. So alumni, you can be a part of the alumni section on LinkedIn or on Facebook, or and kind of make those networking important. I think if there is something, whether it's your resume, or maybe if you were a student athlete and there was a article about you, you can put that on LinkedIn, put that on your profile and Facebook or whatever. If there were other kinds of articles that had your name or mentioned, whether you're part of a student organization or something, in a positive, all those sort of positive things, you can build your social media platform and surround it with tangible things that really can highlight what you can bring to an organization. Another thing that you can do, especially on LinkedIn, is ask for referrals or recommendations, or give referrals or recommendations, right? So, by giving and also receiving those recommendations, that also helps to build your profile. So you just need to be, careful, right? You don't want to put things that might be perceived in more of a negative light. So just think about it, ask your friends, ask somebody trusted, hey, what do you think about this? I've looked at LinkedIn profiles before for some of our students or alumni. I mean, I think overall people are predispositioned to help. And relationships are kind of the nucleus of your network. So if you take the time to invest, and if you contribute as much as you get in return, then I think that slowly you'll start seeing those dividends and those results.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Is what you put in is what you get out. So you just got to be intentional when using social media, and make sure everything you're putting out there is authentic and a true representation of yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the other questions I wanted to ask you is, I know a lot of my friends have come up on this where they're going through the job hunting process and they're on these sites like Indeed or whatnot, and it says 5+ years of experience or something like that. And I know I've heard that you just apply anyways. What's the worst that can happen? But is there anything else on top of that you would tell people who are kind of hesitant to apply for that job that has experience requirements?
Yeah, it's I was thinking about when I was a college student, I was in a sorority. And it was, I mean, it was a very good sorority, but it was one of the sororities on campus that were known as like the reputation of being really active on campus, part of a lot of student organizations, a lot of like social, volunteerism was a big part of our, it wasn't maybe one of the two or three that were like that's the, elite, I say, because my one of the pieces of advice that I got from from my mentor at my sorority, she's like, when you go into a bathroom or you go someplace and you're staring at a mirror and somebody's next to you and you're feeling intimidated because they're part of that group, not, you're both washing hands and you're both, basically her point was, you are the same, and it's how you carry yourself that is important. So I really think I try to, maintain that thought, and kind of to your point, the bottom line is you never know until you apply for something, right? Like if you psych yourself out, then you're already setting up for, and not having a promising outcome. But if you go in there thinking, yeah, I could do this, maybe not the CEO of a position or vice president of a company, but there's definitely, maybe not, but there's definitely going to be, if it says 2 or 3 years experience or 5 years experience preferred, think about what skills and the job qualifications that you have that are transferable, right? Make a list, make a list where you say, they want this, I have this, and I have demonstrated this by the organization that I was a part of, or my athletic team that I was a part of, or my project, my internship that I did. And internship experience is still work experience. I would actually say that if you are the president of a student organization, that experience is work experience, right? If you, even though you didn't get paid, you did a lot and put a lot of time into that, and managing people, getting people to do things, maintaining a budget, right? All of those different things you can transfer and translate. I also think it's better to communicate things in person than through an automated tracking system or through paper. And so your job in the application process is to get that face-to-face. So your resume is your marketing tool. It's to get you in the door. It's not getting you the job. It's getting you in the door. Just like that, questions that are in the automated tracking system, you have to think about them carefully when you fill it out. So if it says you need to be a college graduate and you're filling this out in March and you're graduating in May, but you are a college graduate, because even though it's March, I mean, unless there's something that's totally going to get off kilter in those 2 months, you are graduating in May. By the time they get to that job application, you'll have your degree. And again, your job is to get in the door. So when you get there, you could be like, I officially graduated in May, walked, I'm getting my diploma. So you communicate that when you are, you're just being authentic, but you're also not eliminating yourself. You don't want to eliminate yourself in any which way before you get a chance to sell your qualifications. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's just trying to find things that you might not have been working in a job for 5 years, but what have you done that gives you the confidence to go in there and say, I think I could do this job?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just And that kind of led me into thinking about another thing you were talking about, being president of the club.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was president of the leadership development program at Aquinas, which is a group that just pretty much goes into local businesses in the GR area and tries to connect students with CEOs and or HR managers to try to get them internships and jobs.
Yeah.
And I saw the value working with the LDP of how much just going and doing something extra or being a president of a club, how much valuable like experience that gives you. And I just was wondering, how important do you think that is for people to add to their resume as a marketing piece, whether it be a club or sports or any extracurricular activities? How important are those on a resume when you're trying to get hired?
Yeah, well, I think they're essential, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience, and even as a student athlete, your experience. I think that all of those different things, and I would also include being a part of musical, organizations, or even if you're working. I mean, I know students who, because they want to graduate and they need to pay for a lot of things themselves, they're working like 30 hours a week. So even those work experiences, that part-time work experience, those are things to be proud of and to highlight as developing your career-ready skills, such as time management, conflict resolution, problem solving, teamwork. I mean, I would imagine, and you could probably give examples of this on the field, of conflict resolution or time management, or teamwork, and how working as a team led to some success. And so all of those things that you have done in your collegiate career are definitely stepping stones for your future. When I was a student and I was a part of the student alumni board at my institution, we did things from organizing homecoming activities to little, siblings weekends and just different things like that. So when I went to go interview for jobs, I had examples of flyers that I made, or or I had lists of vendors from the community of places that donated food for those events that I could show. So, or things like the schedule, or all of those little things are translatable for a career. So if I was going to apply for like a PR firm or marketing firm or event planning company, I had these examples of events that I planned and things that I did for that. And I knew I could articulate and give examples of that. I didn't get paid for that work in college, but it was work that contributed, I think, to my future and to those future goals. Same thing as if you are a student athlete. I mean, I think student athletes deserve a lot of should be commended for all the time management. I mean, you miss things, you have to make it up. You have to make sure that you're always present when you are either in the classroom or if you are on the field. You always have to make sure that you are, giving it your all, even though you might have like a million other things in your mind. And so those are examples to bring into an interview. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with a lot of the things you said. Just from my own experience, it is running a club or a team or sports team. It's like running a business. You have to first off and foremost make sure that everyone in your club or team is okay and on the right track and on the same page.
Mhm.
And then you got to make sure everyone shows up. You got to hold events. You got to connect people to other people outside of your team.
Yeah.
Make sure that you and your team are always putting on a good representation of what you stand for as a whole. And these things are all these experiences relate right back into the real world that I've seen. And a lot of my philosophy of business and just how I carry myself as a professional has came from my experience, not as much in the classroom. That's more of the knowledge portion of it,
Mhm.
but the experiential learning from just putting yourself out there and doing things that other people aren't doing, it really helps form who you are as a person and as a professional.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And for those individuals who might say, gosh, I have to work 30 hours a week, I can't be a part of, an organization, or I'm not able to, I always say, well, think about things that you do within that job, or think about things like the leadership development program. Everyone can play a role in that, whether it's a small role, like helping with the dinner etiquette meal, or just being a member and contributing while you're there, being present in the moment. So there's always things that we could do. It takes some thought, and maybe some just kind of commitment of, I'm going to make this a priority.
I totally agree. And I think this whole conversation has been an absolutely great resource in and of itself for people who are in that situation of looking for jobs, or maybe looking to make a career change, or have been laid off in these times.
Yeah.
As we end up the conversation, I was just wondering if you have one piece of advice for professionals out there looking to grow themselves.
Well, I think what I have come to believe is storytelling, and how that looks, whether it's how you display your personal brand, your resume, that is like one of the most important things for someone. It's kind of your story, and your authentic story is so important. It differentiates you from other people. It is kind of your journey, the good and the bad of that. And I think that those data points in your life. They help you, they define you, they help you remember and how you became that individual you are today. And I think that if you look at those different moments in your life, you can also come up with different stories and different talking points that you can utilize when you're networking, that you can utilize when you are in an interview, and communicating your brand, right? Like who you are, whether it's, I'm a first generation college student, I'm a student athlete. I struggled academically, and I was able to overcome. I mean, job loss, anything in your life, we all have our own story to share, and then practice it. I think about, taking the opportunity to practice it. That's a really good way to introduce yourself to an alumni, kind of practicing your communication, practicing your story. Think about it, like comedians, they don't just go on tour. They practice in small clubs and share their stories, share their little bits before they take them out on the road. And that's what we want to do. We want to walk alongside students and alumni, helping to explore their own journey, and kind of lend that support. So whatever God calls you to become, we're here to help and make that possible.
That's awesome, Dana. And thanks so much for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate you coming on. And one last thing, if for some of those resources for our listeners, how can they find you on LinkedIn or social media?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, just my name, Dana Hebreard. Aquinas is also on LinkedIn as an organization, or individuals can actually just go to the Aquinas College website, and if you type into the search engine Advantage Center, you'll see the whole team and all of the things that we talked about here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, and thanks for coming on, Dana. It was good to talk with you.
It was good to see you. Take care.
Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it professional, people.